What's Up with Humanity, Chapter 1. The Problem with Humanity. Human beings find themselves at a crossroads. On one side, humanity demonstrates fantastic technical prowess. But on the other hand, humanity is as stuck as ever in endless war, disputes, economic inequality, petty rivalries, societal disturbances, alienation, anxiety, depression, existential crisis, despair, boredom, and a sense of meaninglessness in life. Such are the common problems of today's humanity. For all of our technology and apparent modernism, we are still stuck. Nothing has really changed for the average human being on Earth. Their life is still stuck. Yes, we have advanced from the point of view of reduction in poverty, recognition of the rights of all human beings, and good progress has been made towards recognizing minorities and the weaker sections in their communities and providing them support, whether it be in the area of their rights and representation, and in many cases financially too. This is all good, and we may well be reminded by the famous psychologist Steven Pinker that Earth has never had it so good. Certainly, this bears out on a physical perspective. And these benefits come via technology and education, which are both great advances in our society. Yet, why the wars, the rampant inequality, and on an interpersonal level, the anxiety, fear, and depression, the hopelessness and sense of loss and meaningless living which many people feel in their lives? The 7 deadly sins: lust, gluttony, greed, which is avarice, sloth, anger, which is wrath, envy, and pride, which is hubris, are all alive and well as in any other epoch in human history. War is still a thing. Injustice is rampant. Even our wealthy capitalistic societies, although far more egalitarian than any other age, maybe even socialistic in their support for the needy, are at the same time rife with economic injustice, and it is a systemic injustice. On the one hand, we give to the poor, on the other hand, we create and maintain the poor. It is fair to say that there are 2 key areas of unhappiness in the world today, and they are external and internal unhappiness. External unhappiness relates to wars, famines, societal injustice, poverty, etc., whereas internal unhappiness relates to the individual and how they feel about themselves and the world in which they live. It is my contention that both external and internal unhappiness can be resolved via an internal shift of conscious awareness. It all begins with the individual changing within themselves. As a consequence of that, their external value system and actions will change in the process. To quote the British philosopher Thomas Hobbes, it can be said that, as if a multitude of men should agree to make one body of men, under one government, they might do it so long as they were under a visible power, and had hope to continue so. But when they have passed that hope, broke the covenant, and every man resumes his natural liberty, and has a right to protect himself by his own best means, it is no longer one body, but many. In his book, The Leviathan, Hobbes proposes that a country consists of individuals, members who, although autonomous, because they work together under a common goal and common ideals, that they act as if they are one body. It is my contention that the majority of individuals in society could grow, mature as human beings, that this would be projected onto society, and as a whole, and society as a whole would improve greatly. To some degree, the external unhappiness in society has improved a lot, and we can put this down to civilization. On the one hand is civilization, and the other hand is chaos and disharmony. Over the last few thousand years, humanity has lurched forward and made some gallant strides in this regard. All that we consider sacred and all that gives each human being dignity is a direct and consequential outcome of the process of civilization. Indeed, civilization is an ongoing and never-ending process. This process is a great thing, and it must continue. But so long as certain underlying issues are ignored or out of the picture, humanity will continue to be stunted in its growth and self-expression. This is what I plan to tackle in this book. That is the cause of internal unhappiness and how they impact society as a whole. What's up with humanity can also be interpreted as what is wrong with humanity and how can we fix it. We must begin by working on the causes of individual unhappiness, and we must then see society itself will correct itself, and society will flower in a way that has not been able to do so before. Why the focus on the individual? The reason for focusing upon the individual is based upon the principle asserted by Hermes Trismegistus in the Emerald Tablet. As within, so without. As above, so below. As the universe, so the soul. The principle, also known as above, so below, suggests that human beings are a reflection of the universe around them. Whatever is in the universe is also in humankind. The famous artist Leonardo da Vinci created a drawing which outlined this and is known today as the Vitruvian Man. And it is referred that way because Leonardo was very interested in the 1st century Roman architect Vitruvius, who was fascinated by proportions. In Leonardo's famous diagram of a man, it demonstrates the geometric proportions of the ideal human being, and we can simply admire the picture itself because it looks cool, as its title is cool, or we can go deeper and think about the concept of man as a measure of all things, which the picture demonstrates. On a physical level, it represents ideal proportion, both as a human being and in nature, but also on a metaphorical level. It reflects that everything is in nature is also a man. So what is this all to do with humanity? There's been lots of social movements aimed at fixing mankind, and they have all failed miserably. Just look at the endless list of social reformers and see how things went. Sure, some improvements have taken place in society, but by and large, society is still in a big mess. Various religious figures have come and gone, proposing some great reform of humanity, and yet humanity remains essentially the same. Various political movements have come and gone, and so too everything remains basically the same. Yeah. I think so, yeah. I will call them down in a second. I'm just recording. And I'll check, yeah. Yeah. Okay, coming in a couple of minutes. Yeah. I will call them. Just let me finish the recording for 2 minutes, then I'll call them. Why is there a status quo in society? Sure, externally there appears to be a lot of changes, but ultimately if we look below the surface, we can see that every country in the world boasts a small elite class of people who own most of the wealth. Most politicians are either crooks or they are influenced in some way to get along. Religion seems to be preoccupied in power dynamics and keeping the coppers flowing in rather than in challenging the inequalities of society. By and large, most countries are capitalistic in outlook, and those that are not appear to be more dysfunctional in character. In some countries, the individual is more or less free, but still they are kind of oppressed and treading on water. From the point of view of world economics, we switch from boom to bust on a regular basis, and few people really gain any serious wealth, whilst the majority are continually stressed over money. Inequality is everywhere, and the individual is simply a cog in a giant machine. And what about all those great reformers, those social reformers or religious reformers? Every reformer appears to base their actions upon utilitarian lines, which suggests that that which is for the greater good will be adopted in society. But this is never the case. In the economy, those with leverage take the gains, while giving peanuts to their workers. In the arena of politics, politicians continually plot against each other. In the realm of international politics, world leaders act as if they are brothers and sisters, as they handshake and even bear hug each other sometimes. Meanwhile, they hold a dagger in the other hand, to stab their opponent when he or she is not looking. If international respect and cordiality were really there, they would not have to be a multi-trillion-dollar national expenditure upon defense. Meaning that armies keep on disposing of old weapons and gearing up with new ones, which are even more expensive than the last ones, just in case their neighbours and friends decide to attack them. Is this model the right model? And we know it is true. We know that we have to spend on our military, otherwise our friends will attack us and we will become a slave nation. But what does this tell you about the state of our civilization? Our religious founders have failed us. Lord Ram, Lord Krishna, Lord Buddha, Jesus Christ and Muhammad. Where is the promised society which they have all proposed? I know the religious among us, you will tell me that your Lord and Saviour will come true in the end. But even if this is the case, isn't there also a parable which Jesus shared about a wealthy man who shared his wealth with his servants? The parable is known as the parable of the talents. 2 of his servants invest money and give his master a good return in the investment. The master is happy and he rewards them with more money. Whereas the 3rd servant, who was scared, and so he did not want to lose the money, so instead he hid the money away, and so he didn't make any profit. So upon the Lord returning, he asked the pertinent question, "What have you been doing in my absence?" So we must think about how we can provide some return on the investment, as it were. Certainly they will ask the various religious leaders these questions, for also our religions have let us down. Religions tend to be more focused on maintaining their power base and in boosting their religious leaders rather than working as a grassroots level to help individuals who make up their congregations. Our societal reformers have let us down. What is the real legacy of Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, Rosa Parks? What is the real world legacy of the great politicians of the last 100 years? What is the real legacy of Winston Churchill, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Adolf Hitler, Mao Zedong, Stalin, Charles de Gaulle, John F. Kennedy, Ronald Reagan, Mikhail Gorbachev? What is the real world legacy of our 20th century thinkers and innovators? Marie Curie, Einstein, Robert Oppenheimer, Stephen Hawking, Alan Turing, John von Neumann, Henry Ford, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates. And what about our greatest thinkers and philosophers of the 20th century? What is their real-world legacy? What is the real-world legacy of Ludwig Wittgenstein, Jean-Paul Sartre, Albert Camus, Martin Heidegger, Bertrand Russell, Karl Popper, Ayn Rand, Noam Chomsky, Mikhail Foucault, Karl Jasper, Sigmund Freud, Carl Gustav Jung, Jacques Lacan? And finally, what about the great esotericists of the 20th century? What legacy have they left behind them? Aleister Crowley, MacGregor Matters, Dion Fortune, Manly P. Hall, Israel Regardie, P.D. Ouspensky, George Ivanovich Gurdjieff, Rudolf Steiner, Alice Bailey, Helena Petrova Blavatsky, Dorian Valencia, Gerald Gardner, Carlos Castaneda. I'm not saying that these individuals have not contributed greatly to our civilization, although some on the list under the political section have destroyed large parts of it. But by and large, these influential people have done good, in particular in the areas of technological development and the areas of thinking such as psychology, philosophy, esotericism. This last century has been quite productive. Sadly, it has not been so productive in the political front. But one thing is for sure, for all their help in society, we are still in the same mire that we have always been in. Society is in general discontent, and so long as we do not look at the individual, it will continue this way. We can create all the technology we want, and we can have the social movements and good politicians galore, We can have great thinkers, psychologists, and esotericists, and yet still society will basically be dysfunctional so long as we do not bother to look at the connection between the individual and society. It is my contention that whatever ails the individual will be projected onto society. So what are the main causes of unhappiness in society today? It is societal anxiety, fear, loneliness, depression, paranoia, mental health issues, high debt levels, social and economic injustice, prejudice, and exploitation. This is not a full list, but it gives some idea as to what is the problem they're having today. But no matter how much you do to reform society, unless the individual is reformed as well, society will not be reformed. The angst, the isolation, the loneliness present in society today, expressed in the individual, will be projected onto the group. The distrust in the neighbours, co-workers and other businesses is then projected onto distrust in other countries. How can we trust another if we cannot trust ourselves first? We are living in a paranoid society that projects fears and insecurities onto the people around us and our various interactions within society. A person who's an inner self within themselves projects this onto other people whom they meet in their daily lives. A business management team who have a rift within themselves, they'll project it onto their workers, who in turn, because they have a rift within themselves, project it back onto the management team, thus creating a confrontational culture within the company. And let's not forget that the political leadership of a certain country possesses rifts within themselves. They'll project it onto other countries and also project it back onto themselves, resulting in strife in international politics, which of course leads onto friction and sometimes even more. Society can only change when we change ourselves. And even when we look at the list of thinkers, many of their ideas are great, but thinking on its own will not change us. We have to go beyond rational thought. Even psychologists know and esotericists know about themselves, but they will not yield the results which they crave. We have to go beyond all knowledge and actually change our own personality dynamics, and this process has to be replicated across society to some degree, that the majority of people on this planet are committed to growing and developing themselves. I know this is a lot to ask, and what I'm suggesting is idealistic, but there are only two ways that we can really change society at a deeper level. Remember, while it looks as if each generation is changing a lot, deep down the same old humans with the same old trust issues, insecurities, negative thinking and paranoid projections. Our society is essentially fixated at the paranoid schizoid stage from Melanie Klein's perspective, and the only way out is either through God or the space aliens or whoever it is who can change the programming of all humanity in one go, or we have to do it ourselves, one way or another, one person at a time. Personally, I'm not waiting on a Mahatma or a space alien to come along and fix or align humanity. We must do it ourselves. We must look at the various influencers of the last 100 years, appreciate their efforts, but also accept that something has to be done on a bigger global level, at the same time on an individual level. This effort involves education, but knowledge is not enough. Rather, a series of maturational processes have to be engaged in by the majority of people on this planet. Some of these processes are already in place, and many more will come. But this is the only way that we can fix the planet, is by fixing ourselves and then projecting our improved inner mental, emotional, spiritual condition onto the world around us, and so resulting in interactions in our daily lives improving. What follows are some chapters overviewing the challenges that we face in society, the psychic structures of human beings, why it is that the world is in a mess because of our own internal inconsistencies and inner dysfunctionality, and why we have to have a practical sense. We have to overcome these issues and become a better society. This book will endeavour to explain from a psychological and esoteric level why it is that the world is forever in a mess, a forever war, as it were, within ourselves and within society itself, continually reignited with each and every generation of humanity, because we do not know who we are and we do not know what is wrong with us. And most importantly of all, we do not know how to fix ourselves. And this book will endeavour to answer these questions and also pave a way or a path which is practical, which will directly help you to learn about yourself, heal yourself, and in the process heal humanity along with yourself. In the next chapter, we will look at the thorny subject of religion and what we must do about it. So let us begin.